Good afternoon. This public hearing conducted by the Committee on Economic Development, Agriculture, Maritime Transportation, Power and Energy Utilities and Emergency Response is now called to order at 2:04 p.m. Notice of the hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets via electronic mail on October 7th of 2019, with a second notice provided on October 12th of 2019. Notice of the hearing was also made known on the Guam Legislature's website. The committee will hear testimony on Bill number 80-35 COR, an act to amend Section 8311 of Article 3, Chapter 8, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, relative to raising the renewable portfolio standards of the Guam Power Authority. The committee will now hear first from the primary sponsor of the bill, Senator Amanda Shelton, to provide her statement on the bill.
Sidis Masi, Mr. Chair, and I thank you today for hosting this public hearing for us on Bill 80-35. I believe that Gov Guam must set a long-term goal that will have lasting benefits for our people. It was in 2008 that Senators Ben Pangilinan and Jim Esbaldon and BJ Cruz, together with the 29th Guam Legislature, passed Public Law 29-62 to set a goal of 25% renewable energy by 2035. At the time, GPA had no renewable energy in its portfolio. Currently, 6% of GPA's energy portfolio comes from renewable energy. And as we know, the solar farm contracts approved last year will bring 120 megawatts online for GPA by 2022, meeting the 25% renewable energy target 13 years early. With the goal being achieved, I think now is the time for us to think boldly and raise that goal even further. In 2015, the Hawaii legislature passed a law requiring 100% of its electricity to come from renewable resources by 2045. Maine and Puerto Rico recently passed 100% renewable energy targets for 2050. The District of Columbia passed the same goal by 2032. California, New Mexico, and Washington all passed bills in the last 12 months to require 100% carbon-free electricity by 2045. New York requires the same by 2040. Nevada established a voluntary 100% carbon-free goal by 2050. And Illinois, Minnesota, New Jersey, North Carolina, and Wisconsin are currently debating similar measures. The difference between us and these states are that we are an island territory with much different consequences being posed to us by climate change, and the time to act is now. With advances in technology, solar power we've seen dramatic decreases in the cost of solar power. GPA spends so much money a year on fossil fuels, costs which are passed on to our ratepayers. And I know, as we've discussed, and many of us in this room discuss, our goal here is to bring down power bills for our people while doing good for our island's environment. The use of solar energy and other renewable energy sources will result in lower power bills, a cleaner environment, and lower dependence on foreign oil. While the bill is in its current form calls for 50% renewable energy by 2035, we've discussed pushing the envelope even further to discuss the possibility of 100% renewable energy goal, just like Hawaii, Maine, Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C., California, New Mexico, Washington, New York, and Nevada have already committed to. We shouldn't just go from one type of fossil fuel to another, but really explore these alternative energy solutions that are not just good for these other states, but good for Guam. We can push the envelope even further and really preserve our environment and our pocketbooks for our children and for future generations. So again, Mr. Chair, I thank you for this hearing today. I want to thank in advance everyone who came out to support the bill and those who have provided testimony to strengthen this legislation, and also to our colleagues who are here today to listen to the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. I'd like to recognize my colleagues that have joined us today, along with Senator Shelton, the primary sponsor of the bill, also Senator Tello Taitagui and Senator Therese Terlahi. Thank you for joining us. And with that, I'd like to begin now with public testimony, starting first in the order of those who signed up on the sign-in sheet. And if you are interested in providing public testimony today, please sign up with my staff who's located at the table in the corner over there. So first on the list, we have Jeff Vocolo, Joe Rosario, Tracy Lim Tiago, and Joey Duenas. Chairman Duenas, did you sign up also for? Okay. And we'll begin first with Mr. Vocolo. Please begin first by introducing yourself into the microphone for the record, and then you can proceed with your testimony. Thank you.
Jeff Spicoli, Chief Operations Officer for Micronesia Renewable Energy. Okay. Thank you. Chairman and committee members, thank you very much for the opportunity to give testimony today at this public hearing on this extremely important bill, number 80-35. I agree with the bill in theory, but disagree with the bill written in its present form, and let me explain why. With the present penetration levels of solar energy, Guam's most vital renewable energy resource, at 3%, and the bill's goal of reaching 50% renewable by 2035, there has to be a clear strategy outlined to hit what I believe is a very achievable goal. I believe there are three main parameters that should be followed to reach this goal. One is sustainability. The second should be grid resiliency, and the third, grid security. The first platform is sustainability. One of the definitions of sustainability is the avoidance of the depletion of a natural resource in order to maintain an ecological balance. I believe building solar farms is the wrong approach to reaching this goal. The depletion of one of Guam's greatest natural resources, land, to accomplish this goal makes no sense at all. In 2017, MRE invited CPS Energy executive team to Guam. CPS Energy is the nation's largest municipal-owned energy company in the United States. They're out of San Antonio, Texas. CPS Energy, at their own expense, came to Guam and met with GPA's executive team along with two CCU board members. One of the statements that a CPS Energy executive gave to the GPA was, in Texas, one of the things that they don't lack, of course, is land. And in Guam, that's one of our most precious resources that we all keep on talking about. Also, at CPS, they have solar farms as part of their RPS portfolio. But over the last 7 years now, they've been totally focused on distributed generation as their renewable energy resource. Their model is using existing commercial buildings and residential customers, adding solar energy, and now couple that with energy storage at the point of consumption makes the most sense. You're spreading this energy in the community that it's generated and consumed. So sustainability needs to be one of the main parameters in this bill. The second, grid resiliency. Distributed generation balanced throughout the grid on an island network makes sense. Coupled with energy storage, it even makes more sense. By using DG as a model for grid resiliency, you are now using this energy at the point of consumption, spreading this energy around the local community that it's generated in. This eliminates line loss on the network. And of course, when you cut down generation of fossil fuel, you eliminate many factors: fuel, O&M, maintenance on the generators, transmission, distribution line losses, and I can go on and on and on. So grid resiliency should be one of the main parameters of this bill. The third and the most important, I believe, is grid security. Being on an island in the middle of the Pacific with the utilization of a non-interconnected grid, coupling this fossil fuel grid with solar farms, as the farms were destroyed, only 20% of distributed generation was destroyed. Another really good case that we just experienced was Typhoon U2, that we can relate to very well. MRE, at the time that U2 hit, we had 418 systems built on the island of Saipan when this devastating typhoon hit the island. The 20% rule held true with us. 88 of our systems were damaged. And I heard through the community that people were, that's a number basically I'm extremely proud of, 20% of our systems. Most of these systems had minor damage with only 2 systems that were totally destroyed out of 418. And those systems, or the ones that were basically damaged, were on the southern part of the island where the typhoon was the worst, with up to 226 mile an hour gust. We had all these systems repaired in less than 3 weeks, waiting for the utility to come back online. It took some of these systems to actually get back online more than 5 months. If there was a solar farm there, believe me, it would have been totally destroyed. We even had calls from all over the world with companies, commercial companies, developers, and the military from NAVFAC out of Hawaii and Port Hueneme, California, who were extremely impressed by the strength of our systems. And when you put these systems and you build them on roofs, it really leverages the strength of the systems, because you're on a roof, you have parapets that protect the systems, you have other buildings, you have trees. So that's why distributed generation basically makes the most sense. Now, when you couple this with energy storage, you decentralize that energy network, and that really adds security to the grid. I've heard 2 points on solar farms. One was a price point. If you would give the industry, the distributed or developers here, the chance to bid a 40 megawatt proposal with distributed generation, believe me, we would be extremely competitive with a solar farm. I also heard people make a point where, well, we don't really care about solar farms because we don't own them. So if they get destroyed, they'll just rebuild them. I think that's a pretty foolish way to go into a long-term contract. I believe the goal of this bill is to increase renewable energy on the island of Guam by being very smart on how this is accomplished. I believe provisions need to be written in this bill on how we get there. I also believe that adding a distributed generation component to this bill, the 50% goal can be reached by 2025. That's 10 years earlier, and I strongly believe that that could be accomplished. I would also like to offer the chairman and the committee members contacts that we have throughout the industry that are solar energy experts, and also experts at CPS Energy and other utility commissioners that we know personally. And that could be an extremely vital resource to see how other utilities are handling their energy future. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate the time given to me today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosario, please introduce yourself first before we begin.
Buenas, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak and provide testimony on Bill 8035. Like Jeff, I do support the intent of the bill. I believe that the island should move towards more utilization of solar energy. However, I think that more weight should be placed on a certain method of solar energy generation. My name is Joe Rosario, Business Development Director for Micronesia Renewable Energy, a local company with 50 employees with expertise in the development, design, construction of solar energy systems. And I'm also an advocate for greater distributed generation solar utilization on Guam. The benefits of DG far outweigh the benefits of a solar farm. Let's use 40 megawatts of solar as a basis of comparison. First is like Jeff mentioned, was land space requirements. A 40 megawatt solar farm is going to require 160 acres of land. As we know, land is finite, especially on islands. On the other hand, 40 megawatts of distributed generation requires 0 land space. All that is needed for DG are rooftops. And for 40 megawatts of DG, that's approximately 4,000 residential house rooftops, or 4,000 solar energy systems spread throughout the island. Why is that important? My second point is vulnerability to storms, and Jeff touched on that. A solar farm is concentrated in one area, which makes it extremely vulnerable to typhoons, as experienced in Puerto Rico during Hurricane Maria. There's a high likelihood that a 40-megawatt solar farm will be destroyed by a major storm. What good would that solar farm be then? With DG, solar energy systems are constructed on rooftops throughout the island. In a major storm, some systems may be damaged, but the majority will stay intact. How long do you think would it take to reconstruct a solar farm? I'm not sure, but as Jeff said, it took us 3 weeks to completely recover our solar energy systems in Saipan. The next one is time of construction. We know that 160 acres of land is needed for 40 megawatts of solar. That's just the start. 160 acres of land needs to be cleared. Land clearing requires permitting and civil engineering. That permitting process takes months. What if human remains are uncovered? Work will immediately stop and the SHPO is activated. Construction is at a halt for who knows how long. With DG, there's no need for land clearing and permitting, and there's no need for a SHPO. With a simple building permit from DPW, DG systems can be constructed almost immediately. So the 3 to 5 years it takes to construct a 40-megawatt solar farm can be cut in almost half that time with distributed generation. In fact, as DG systems are completed and commissioned, those systems can start generating electricity immediately. The last one I think is very important is the thriving local solar industry and economy. Hats off to the 3 foreign companies who were awarded the 260 megawatt and 40 megawatt solar farm construction contracts. But what good does that do for the local solar industry and the local economy long term? Just think about that. I don't think it's much. Sure, they're going to provide clean solar energy at a good kilowatt hour price to GPA. But all that money now leaves the island benefiting the company and its investors in their country. Imagine 40 megawatts of distributed generation developed by a local company in the solar industry, constructed by local companies in the solar industry on Guam. I can imagine a kWh rate of 13 cents with storage. I understand that KEPCO and Hanwha came in at 6 cents and 8 cents respectively, and there's scuttlebutt that the 40 megawatts for the military is coming in at 11. So I think 13 cents for distributed generation with storage is very competitive. So that's good, paying, long-term, sustainable jobs that benefit our local economy, not just the 3 to 5 years that it takes to build a solar farm. These are local electricians and solar energy experts in our field. Just 5 years ago, 7 years ago, if we needed somebody to engineer and construct a solar energy system, we had to go off island for that expertise. Now that expertise exists here, and it's local companies. Sustainable jobs in local economy, but just as important, it eliminates capital flight. The money that's going to go into paying for the development of that 40 megawatt DG system stays on Guam, and again, benefiting the local economy. Mr. Chair, I want to be clear that I am not against solar farms. I just think that there should be more emphasis placed on DG, and it should be written into this bill. DG benefits all: GPA, the industry, the economy, and most importantly, the environment. But it's also going to benefit the ratepayers of the utility, who are your constituents. Sen Bill Thule.
Thank you, Mr. Rosario. Mrs. Lim Tiago?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Hafaday Senators. The Guam Power Authority is pleased to offer testimony in support of Bill 80-35 as introduced. GPA supports amending Section 8311 of Article 3, Chapter 8, Title 12, Guam Code Annotated, to reflect a new renewable portfolio standard goal of 50% of renewable energy capacity by 2035. GPA has been adding utility-scale renewable energy to its portfolio beginning in 2015 with a 25-megawatt Dundun solar photovoltaic facility. 40 megawatts of battery storage will be commissioned later this year to provide short-term energy dispatching and address intermittency issues. Another 120 megawatts of solar PV with battery storage has been awarded for commissioning in 2022. An additional project, if awarded, will provide another 40 megawatts of solar PV and battery storage on or about 2022 and will mark the 25% renewable energy capacity milestone. The Consolidated Commission on Utilities recognized that GPA will fulfill its 25% RPS goal by 2022. Thus, in support of increased renewable energy capacity and of Bill 80-35, the CCU directed GPA to continue the infrastructure upgrades necessary to attain the proposed 2035 50% renewable energy goal. GPA is in the process of updating the Integrated Resource Plan, the IRP, to identify additional renewable energy projects and grid infrastructure upgrades required to achieve this new goal. The IRP update is scheduled to be completed in mid-2020. GPA looks forward to an earnest discussion on this community issue.
Thank you. Mr. Duenas?
Hafaday, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Joey Duenas, and I'm here to offer oral testimony in support of Bill 80-35, and to be here to represent the Commission because of the resolution that was attached to the letter of the General Manager and that was passed, the resolution passed by the board, and to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
I do have a question for Mrs. Lim Ciacco or Chairman Duenas, if you could. What's the percentage of the current renewable portfolio at this time?
It's between 5% and 6%.
And you guys have mentioned that you should be nearing the 25% rate soon, correct?
Correct.
What are the projects that are going to get to the 25% rate? Do you have that information?
Senator, that is, if you have a copy of the testimony, it's listed on a table in the testimony.
Okay, thank you. So on that testimony, it has the projects that will reach 25%. Okay. And are there any prospective projects that GPA believes will enable them to achieve 50% by 2035 renewables?
Yes, there's another phase that's in the works, it's being planned, as well as updating the Integrated Resource Plan. The Integrated Resource Plan is a process by which we get input from stakeholders and understand where we are now, assess the grid, and plan out the additional renewable projects. As the Chairman Duenas had said, the CCU has also directed GPA to start on that now, specifically for the renewable goal of 50% by 2035.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might add, the way GPA has proceeded, the way the CCU has directed GPA to proceed, is we have put out requests to people to step forward to provide renewable energy, and we've left it open as to how. What we usually do is we say up to 120 megawatts the last time we put out a bid, and so two companies stepped forward. One said 60 megawatts, the other one 60 megawatts, and then this phase 3 was the 40 megawatts that we're in the process of reviewing for final award, and that was where we put out 40 megawatts, up to 40 megawatts. It could be somebody providing 20 megawatts, somebody providing another 20 megawatts, somebody providing the whole 40 megawatts. And the difference is that this 40 megawatts is now to be paired with battery energy storage that will allow for shifting of power. In other words, the battery storage to date so far has been geared towards addressing the intermittency problem with solar, where right now it's nice and sunny, and in a couple hours we may have rain showers that go over the island. All the solar units that are on the island, whether on rooftops or on solar farms, will stop producing as much as they should, and could stop producing entirely. So when that happens, the energy storage that we're putting in right now up to this point is to address the fact that that power will drop from the solar production and there must be something to catch it so that it doesn't fall all the way down and cause a problem with interrupting service to our island. This phase 3, the 40 megawatts, is now asking the proposers who have stepped forward and saying, we ask that you put in energy storage that will be available to shift the power. In other words, you're charging the energy storage for release at nighttime when we peak. The island peaks in the evening hours between 6 and 9. So if we can store energy and release it at that time, it means that we use less fossil fuel again. That's the peak of the, unlike the mainland, whose peak is usually during the day, usually in the afternoon hours between 3 and 4, or 3 and 6 rather, our peak is different. Our peak is a nighttime peak, given the economy that we have, tourism related. And so therefore that's where we are today. We will be going out for more renewable, and we will be soliciting from anybody who wants to step forward and make a proposal. So in my opinion, if somebody wanted to step forward and say we want to do distributed generation, they could have stepped forward and given us a proposal. I think there's a little bit of a confusion with distributed generation. I'm not sure, but I believe what's being proposed is that these rooftops will be paid directly from GPA to the provider. That's not the way rooftop solar works. Okay, but you know, nobody's come forward. In the very first iterations of our RFP proposals, we put out proposals and said, it's open to anything, solar, wind. Nobody yet has been able to come forward with a wind proposal, but it's not limited. It's renewable energy, now with energy storage, and now with a greater emphasis on energy storage for shifting.
Thank you. I'd like to afford my colleagues the opportunity to ask any questions if they have any. Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Senator Tidig.
Okay, I think thank you first, everyone, for coming, as well as the other two who testified earlier. My question is to GPA with regards to, have you had the opportunity to listen to a group from Korea, maybe not this year, but maybe last year, with regards to backed carbon capturing? This is pulling CO2 out of the air and turning it into fuel. Are you familiar with this?
I remember that visit that we had from people, and part of the difficulty we had was they were coming to us asking us to make an investment in something that we weren't sure was really going to work. Okay. The beauty of doing what we're doing right now is putting this out to anybody and saying, give us your version of renewable energy, is the fact that then there's no risk for our customers, ratepayers. That one wanted us to do some things with our current generation. And our current generation is not suited for additional renewable. It's also not suited for, in terms of, it's aged and it's expensive to deal with. So that was some of the stumbling blocks. One of the things that was brought up was we are always looking for the best economical result for our ratepayers too. And so therefore the 8 cents that is quoted on the 120 that is coming up, the 2 solar farms that are under construction right now, that's a good deal for us. The 40 megawatts is around 11.5 cents. That's the pricing that we're in the final stages of reviewing and ascertaining and locking down. And that's only because now they have to put more batteries, and the batteries have to be more robust so that you can do the shifting. Okay,
Is that NG you're referring to?
Pardon?
Is that the NG proposal you're
This
referring
is the
to?
latest proposal we have, Senator.
From the NG company?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it's from them. So that's where we are. By the way, you know, I'd just like to also say that when we've put out our requests for people to step forward to give us renewable energy, we haven't limited them to any one particular form. And, you know, nobody's ever come and said, well, we'll give you nuclear energy, which is a form of renewable energy, but nobody else has, like I said, been able to do wind. The only ones we've received have been solar.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I know that there's been some new development, especially in Canada, with this, the backing of Bill Gates is actually backing this type of technology. And I do appreciate all the other types of technology and renewables that's mentioned in Bill 80-35. Solar, we have such a great advantage here on Guam with solar, but we still know that it's not as reliable still. We're getting to that. Hopefully once batteries are being able to store enough to sustain us without blowing up, you know, because that's still an issue out there with that. So I really appreciate being here and testifying, and to, as well as the other gentlemen. Thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you, Senator Tadiwi. Senator Talahi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to follow up with a couple things. So on your table for GPA, Tracy, all of these together are going to add to 25%?
Correct.
Okay, and then the last project that's listed here is not yet awarded, you said. And in the narrative, it says 40 megawatts, but down here it says 50.
Yeah, excuse me, Senator, we'll have to either check that because it's a different form of
Okay, but it's the same project we're talking about
Correct.
here.
If there is a correction, we'll submit an explanation for that.
Is one of these the military project or more than one?
Yes, you're talking about you're probably referring to the Phase 3 project. So that's the last one listed. So if awarded, right now that is it has not yet been proposed for award to the CCU or the PUC yet. So we've just
And this is the only project with the military. You're saying the last one listed here,
Correct.
not yet awarded.
That's correct.
The one
Correct.
that- okay,
Correct.
I thought you made an announcement.
Well, what
an
it is
intent to award.
yeah, an intent to award. In other words,
Intent.
we've been reviewing, and we're in the final stages of the review process to award this company, this contract, and this is the only one that's on military land.
All right, and this is going to be, you know how they're talking about, this is a solar farm. Again,
Yes.
it's not, it doesn't incorporate the distribution grid that they.
Distributed
this
generation,
Distributed
Senator, works
generation,
better in the mainland where you have long distances, and therefore there are these pockets of communities. And if you do solar generation in that area, you can keep it, and that's why they say there's less line losses, because the line losses are when the power has to go over different.
You do still suffer from line loss here, though, correct?
We do suffer from line loss in our major transmission facility, but we're correcting that with the new power plant. The new power plant will cut down on line losses because the distance will be very short between the power generation and the main transmission. Right now, the transmission line has to go over Nimitz Hill through Sinahanya, and that line is proposed to be abandoned in the future. We will take those lines down because you lose transmission, you lose power in that long transmission corridor. You also suffer because if you have a bad storm, that transmission line gets knocked out. That means you have a hard time. The last time that happened, I think, was in Pongsona, and we had an island-wide outage because that line went out during the storm, and we tried to push the power through the 34.5 transmission line along the coast, and it couldn't handle it. And we threw the island into an island-wide power outage. So those all get corrected by the new power plant that's going to be built up in Harmon or Okudu.
But distributed generation would also assist with reducing line loss, though, correct?
Not really, not in Guam. Like I said, it really works better for the mainland where you have distances involved and pockets. Guam is so small. I'll give you a good example in the island of Kauai, the city and county of Kauai, which is a small island. Their peak load is 70 megawatts. They limit rooftop solar, for example, in their island to 1% of their peak load. Everything else is utility scale solar. It's small. Islands are small. There's not these big distances. The problem we have is the one that goes over Nimitz Hill. It's a long 115 transmission line.
I think, well, I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to debate you on that, but I think they're also talking about limiting it to certain areas, right? For example, if you didn't have to transmit it over Nimitz Hill and you kept it to a certain area, then maybe we would have different results.
And Senator, that's what I was trying to allude to earlier. Let me be clear. When we put out these requests, we don't limit it
All right.
to this or that. They have the freedom to come forward, step forward and say, we'd like to offer this to you.
Okay, so in
And-
the IRP, that's your plan for...
The integrated resource plan, yes.
Right, so that will be where you're going to pick up the additional 25% before 2035.
Well,
You're gonna
these
plan some-
projects get us to the 25%.
Yes, but to get to 50%
Oh, to
by
50%.
2035, you need to pick up an
We're going
additional
to-
25%.
What
That
we'll
will
do-
be in the IRP, which we
Right.
haven't seen yet. You're still working on it. That may then, you're saying, include any proposal that they might come up with.
No, what I'm trying to tell you is what we're going to do is probably just keep asking for whoever wants to provide renewable energy in whichever form they want to provide it to step forward. Let me give you another kind of renewable energy called geothermal, which we've always said to people, can you do that? We actually had a group from Korea that came here and said, we'd like to think about that. We said, fine, you give us the proposal. And it broke down to where they said, well, we'd like you to pay for the upfront cost of drilling. And that's where the major cost is in geothermal. The military actually did try and drill for geothermal. And after spending $5 million, I think they said, okay, that's it. We can't seem to find it. Because you may have to go down deeper. And the deeper you go, the more expensive it becomes. And it's not a very simple thing to do, because even in the state of Hawaii and the city and county of Hawaii, which is the big island, with the 6 volcanoes that they have on that island, they still aren't able to make geothermal work really well.
Are you saying that the military spent $5 million on Guam?
I
to
believe
do that?
they did. I remember somebody telling me once. I never read it in any document,
all right.
but I remember discussing it with somebody, and they said they thought that the military had spent $5 million digging what you call exploratory holes. And that's where the key is. If you end up spending $50 million doing that, the money, this is
No, I
important.
understand. It has to benefit us in the
Yeah,
long run,
because
right?
the money GPA
I have-
has comes from the ratepayer.
Right, I have additional questions.
Sure.
then. So, it looks to me like you're going to make your if this last contract goes through, you're going to make your 25% in 2022, very soon.
Yes.
And so this 2035 goal to get to 50%, do you think that should be shortened?
Here's the thing. I like the bill as written, because if we get a lot of proposers that step up, then we'll get there faster. But I can't guarantee to you that people will keep coming in, because as we go forward, we're going to continue to ask that they give us renewable energy that is available for shifting, for nighttime hours, so that we really can control how much we burn and cut down on fossil fuel.
Senator, if I may?
Sure.
You asked about the integrated resource plan. So the IRP is GPA's master plan of sorts, and that exists already. It exists on our website. I believe that we've had updates in perhaps 2008, 2012, maybe 2016. So we're definitely due for an update now. In regard to the goals and whether or not our renewable energy goal should be shortened, the 50% renewable energy goal, that is a great question for that process.
Okay.
That process involves all stakeholders, all residents of Guam, even our military partners, as well as the legislature, anybody who wants to participate. So that's the perfect time to look at the technology, see what the stakeholder input is, understand the technical issues to reach all of those goals, and perhaps we can revisit the law if need be then.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, and the reason I'm asking is because Mr. Jeff, I think, brought it up earlier, Voacolo, that if you added in the DG component, we could get to 50% by 2025, which is very soon. But I understand your process. So when should we be looking for that to be completed, your IRP, your update?
Right, so this update, we're hoping by mid next year. And so right now, our colleague John Cruz is preparing for the update to invite stakeholders and go through this. Correct.
Okay, great.
And can I just add, Senator, the Integrated Resource Plan is not a finite document. In other words, it keeps going.
I understand.
So it's not just
Master plan
yeah,
has to be amended.
it continues. We update it so as we go forward.
Okay, just one more question, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind. Just so after this last project with the military, do they still have a goal that they're trying to reach? I know that they had agreed to go renewable energy for a certain percentage of their projects also. So does this meet their goal, or they still have?
I'm unaware, but I am aware of that goal, that Navy-wide goal. However, I'm not sure if this helps them meet it.
All right. Okay. If you find out, if you could let us know.
I will.
All right. Thank you again. And thank you to all of you who are here today and those who testified. We received your testimony from the Guam Energy Office also.
Thank you, Senator Chalahi. Ms. Lim Tiago, if I may, just you made mention of the table that has the list of the projects and the percentage, and Senator Chalahi was sort of talking about it with you, but I think maybe for the listening audience it would benefit everyone. Could you read that list from the table and sort of go through it?
Sure, Senator. So we have a 25.6 megawatt solar voltaic farm commissioned in 2015, and that's our Dundun solar farm. That's in phase 1. There is a 40 megawatts.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Maybe it would help if you just add in that, like that one, for example, is in Dundan, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, just give us some, for everyone who's listening, where they might find these.
Okay, sure. The 40 megawatts of lithium-ion battery storage system, that's scheduled to be online later this week. That's at 2 of our substations in Agana, our Agana substation, which is in really MTM and Telefofo. We have a 60 megawatt solar voltaic farm to be commissioned in 2022, and another 60 to also be commissioned on the same time. Each of those, one is in Dundun and the other one is in the Sesazun area. And then the 50 megawatt solar photovoltaic farm, that is broken up into, I believe, 3 different locations, but specifically in South Finn and Big Navy. And so that's our phase 3 project.
Okay, thank you. And that, again, is the list that would get to 25% renewables. That
Correct.
list you read. Okay, thanks. Senator Shelton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tracy, can you just explain to me, I see in the second line that we have a battery energy storage system. That's the one you said will be up next week. And then this is a big concern for all of our constituents, right, the battery storage. So I want to know if for these other farms to be constructed, are there additional battery storage units coming along with them, or are they necessary?
Senator, I think that question can be better answered by my colleague, John Cruz.
Sure.
While he's coming up here, I'll try to also give you some information. First off, the 40 megawatt energy storage system was something we embarked upon to try and help us stabilize the grid. And it really became important because of the grid, because of the impact of the Dundun solar farm that started to cause us real problems. And every day, during the day, it could go up and down like this, which is havoc to the system, which likes stability, okay? The other thing is, the So we broke it into two pieces. We put 24 megawatts up here to address the rooftop solars that are also impacting our system, and 16 megawatts down at Talafofo to address the Dundan system.
Senator, would
Mr.
you please restate your question for Mr. Cruz?
Yes,
Sure.
we'll go ahead and have, and Mr. Cruz, before you answer, please
Identify.
state your name for the record and your position.
John Cruz, Guam Power Authority, Assistant General Manager, Engineering and Technical Services.
Thank you. Now, Senator Shelton will ask you the question she posed earlier.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cruz, I was asking Tracy, for all of our constituents who are at home and worried about the power being stabilized from these solar farms, the ones that are coming in 2022, will these also have battery storage capacity there?
The Phase 2 systems that are coming in 22 will have energy storage systems that are for regulating the frequency and making sure that the down drops that we see in solar are taken care of and ameliorated. As of we've had the 26 megawatt at Dandan for a long time, but we started seeing after about 13 megawatts of NEM additions that we were load shedding more because of the downshifts in the solar. That will be ameliorated both with the energy storage systems that we're currently commissioning, and those systems and the systems involved with the Phase 3 units. So this is a plan that we've kind of put together to attack the source and of all these under-frequency load shedding, all those small 5-minute, 10-minute outages. By the time all of our plans are put into place, under-frequency load shedding will almost virtually be eliminated.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Talai?
So, Mr. Cruz, does that mean that these are just to regulate the down drops, but not necessarily to store the energy for the peak time or the the times without sun? Are these like regular? I mean, I don't know what's regular, but are these storage systems to be used later, or they're only to used to regulate down drops at the time?
The Phase 2 on the Hanwha side has 15 megawatts, right, of storage that is load shifting. Okay. The rest of it is just for ameliorating any of the drops that we will see whenever there's cloud cover. There can be some tremendous drops in what the photovoltaic systems will produce when there's cloud cover and rain. Yes, Phase 3 is completely 100% solar after sunset. It'll be the first of that kind
Phase
in the
3,
world.
okay.
Yes.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Talai. I'd like to thank the members of this panel for coming up, and I'll go ahead and call up some of the other members of the public who are here to testify. Thank you. All right, we have Rebecca Respicio, Bill Hagen, Philip Cruz, Leilani Sablan, Morgan Leon Guerrero, I'm just calling names who've signed up, so if you've signed up but you're not here to testify orally, you don't have to come up, of course. But I'm just reading all the names that have signed up. Kyle Santos, Kyle Dehilik. All right, and we'll go ahead and begin with Rebecca Respicio. And just for the record, introduce yourself and,
Sure.
yes, go ahead.
Sure. Hafaday Senators, I am Rebecca Respicio, the Director of the Guam Energy Office. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of Bill 8035. Back in 2008, when Public Law 2962 set the goal at 25% renewable energy by the year 2035, the Guam Power Authority had no renewable energy in its portfolio. Today, we are seeing that with GPA's current portfolio and the addition of the solar farm projects, GPA will meet the 25% target by the year 2022. It makes sense that this legislative body should move forward to make necessary changes to current law in order to set the bar higher and to keep responsible agencies accountable for doing what is better for Guam and our people. Although I come before you as the director of the Guam Energy Office, I did not make the decision to support this amendment all on my own. I am happy to share that I engage in many talks with leaders of our administration, and we are on the same page with regards to reducing agency power bills by encouraging energy efficiency and broader usage of renewable and alternative energy sources for government-owned buildings. It is only right that we assume our leadership role by navigating Guam and the region in a more self-sustaining economy. I spoke with my team at the Guam Energy Office, who is here in support as well, and we are all giving support for Bill 8035. We have an excellent partnership with GPA, and we will continue to work closely with them. Some of the current goals that the Guam Energy Office is working on is the Energy Smart Schools program that establishes energy management practices for up to 4 K-12 facilities on Guam. GPA is the project's technical assistance provider. Everyone will be hearing more details about this project in the coming weeks. Our agency is committed to continued outreach and education for the community. October typically is Energy Awareness Month, but because of the procurement of some of our items, we're moving it to April. Also because April is Earth Month, and it's also Youth Month, and I just have an inside passion for that. So in April 22, we will celebrate Energy Awareness Month, inviting all stakeholders to an Energy Expo, among other activities that is aimed at engaging our youth and families to live a more eco-friendly lifestyle. GPA's invitation to this Energy Expo will be the first that we send out. Senators, thank you for your efforts and for caring about the state of our island's environment. The team at GEO looks forward to reporting this outcome to our federal projects managers with the U.S. Department of Energy. We have given them your plan since it was first brought up back in April, and they are anxiously awaiting Guam's new goal of 50% by 2035. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hagen, please turn on the mic and begin by introducing yourself. Thank you.
I sent electronically my testimony, and you want me to read it in? Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Bill Hagen, and our company, Pacific Solar and Photovoltaics, installed Guam's first net metering project in February of 2009, 10 years ago. Since our first installation in 2009, we have installed solar photovoltaic systems on numerous Guam homes and buildings, as well as Navy, Air Force, and Army National Guard properties. Currently, we are in the process of installing photovoltaic systems at the Guam Department of Public Works. We've also installed systems on Saipan, where during the recent typhoon, we lost 7 solar panels out of 1,500 due to flying debris. Our Guam-designed Met-Good Rail mounting system is designed for winds in excess of 200 miles an hour. I have 2 concerns. First, this proposed legislation may be too limiting by setting too low a threshold. 15 years is a long time in our world of accelerating technology. My second concern is that under the utilities' new power plant agreement, we may be required to purchase all the power they produce rather than only what we need. Will the utility allow renewable energy to exceed the capacity of the new plant? Technology and new developments take a long time to mature until they reach, as the author Malcolm Gladwell calls it in his book, a tipping point. The automobile was first invented in the 1880s, but it wasn't until the 1900s that it truly caught on, and by 1915, the horse and buggy began to disappear, along with the proverbial buggy whip industry. Old industries die, as new ones developed. Most of you probably cannot remember life without a computer or even a cell phone. Like internet connections, these were all available in the 70s and 80s, but it wasn't until the mid-90s they really took off. The World Wide Web, which we all use every day, is not yet 25 years old. And your smartphone has more computing power than Apollo 11 had when it landed on the moon. Once these industries and technologies reached that invisible tipping point, they became not only unstoppable, but essential. Solar photovoltaics on Guam has reached the 10-year mark, and according to the utility, has achieved a 6% rate of production or penetration. Connect the dots, extrapolate into the next 5, 10, and 15 years, and 50% by 2030 may be not very ambitious enough if we reach that tipping point on Guam. Also, a reduction in the use of fossil fuels is imperative for the health of our planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hagen.
Any questions?
Mr. Philip Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully, Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Philip Cruz. I serve as the Sustainability Coordinator for the University of Guam Center for Island Sustainability, and I'm here with some of my colleagues from UOG. We are here in support of Bill number 80-35. Shifting away from fossil fuels and moving towards renewable energy is not only beneficial for our environment, it's also beneficial for our economy. About $300 million leaves Guam's economy each year to import fossil fuels, and a shift to renewables will keep more of those dollars on island. According to the United Nations, energy is the dominant contributor to climate change, accounting for around 60% of total greenhouse gas emissions. Climate change impacts to Guam include sea level rise, which eat away at our coastlines, and mass coral bleaching due to increased sea surface temperatures. According to a report from experts at the UOG Marine Laboratory and the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, rising sea temperatures killed more than a third of Guam's coral reefs in recent years. Healthy coral communities are essential for coastal protection, fisheries, and tourism. Raising the renewable portfolio standards of GPA from 25% to 50% by 2035 will also directly help us achieve 3 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. These goals were adopted in 2015 to put the world on a path to a more sustainable, equitable, and prosperous future by 2035. Last month, Guam joined other island nations to launch the Local 2030 Islands Network and established Guam as part of a network of public and private partnerships to collaboratively develop and implement solutions to advance the SDGs at the local level in ways that are culturally relevant. CIS is pleased to facilitate this process through the Guam Green Growth Initiative, and we encourage you to keep pushing forward to 100% renewable energy for Guam. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you. Kyle Dahilik.
Hafaday Committee on Power and Energy Utilities. My name is Cady Haley, and I dream of a future filled with clean air, water, and soil. I know that to live in our healthy future, we need to protect and promote the environment. Therefore, our choices we make today will determine our opportunities for tomorrow. And over the past month, I learned a lot about energy and biology. I attended 2 public hearings on the fossil fuel power plant, debated this topic in my environmental biology class and lab, as well as researching on my own time. But before I stir the pot, please understand the Huber peak theory, which is that at a certain point in any oil-producing region, the rate of petroleum production will reach a high point and then will only decrease, creating a bell-shaped curve. This is because fossil fuels take millions of years to create, with only a few pumps to run dry. However, this theory does not only apply to fossil fuel production, and after 25 years, photovoltaic solar panels will need to be replaced. After years of sunshine and salty waters, hydro turbines will also need to be replaced. The average lifespan of wind turbines is between 20 to 25 years, and after that, they too would need to be replaced. And nuclear power plants would not be the most protected from earthquakes out here by the Pacific Rim. Please do not mistake my concerns with renewable energy as an attack on our fight for environmentalism, nor as a support for fossil fuels. Rather, I have learned that we will not be saved by mechanical technology alone. For the record, I truly believe that we should fund research projects, but we should also invest in proven solutions. And if we want Guam to be ready for a post-Hubert peak society, we must stop importing tons of meat and fruits and vegetables. We must promote our local agricultural systems and encourage healthy community gardening. And we need to stop importing plastics and invest in materials that are grown and made here on Guam so that my family could stop relying on plastic bags. We need to stop buying so much cars and trucks that end up junked on yards, and we need a reliable public transportation system, possibly an outdoor shaded walkulator that connects me from my house to UOG. We need an educational system that supports individualistic ideals and encourage students to seek trades that matter to them and to the environment. We need to rethink our ways of life and seriously ask ourselves if we are doing enough for a future with clean air, water, and soil. Andang kalun as idus masi, maraming salamat po, and kinisu.
Thank you, Mr. Dehilig. All right, my colleagues, do you have any questions for this panel before I call up the next group? All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, next on the list we have Lucy Kono, Mercy Munya, Tina Mafnas, Michelle Marquez, Mark Pangilinan, Michelle Volcolo. All right. Also, Patricia Diego, and anyone else who's here to testify orally on this bill, please join us. If not, then we'll proceed. Michelle Vocolo, please introduce yourself for the record.
Buenos and half a day, Guahusi Michelle Vocolo. I'm testifying here today on behalf of the Micronesia Climate Change Alliance. Considering the level of climate chaos already unleashed at 1 degree Celsius of warming, from ravaging fires to devastating storms, we must move as rapidly as possible to reduce emissions. Strong short-term targets are crucial to our island's future, which is why I support Bill 8035, which seeks to raise Guam's renewable energy portfolio standard from 25% to 50% by 2035, with the final goal of transitioning to 100% renewable energy. If we are striving for healthier, vibrant communities and a livable future for our island's children, we must transform the ways in which we produce and consume energy. There is no question that policies set in place which advance the growth of renewables will contribute significantly to innovation and growth. An aggressive 100% clean energy standard will only serve to benefit communities, consumers, and our environment. Achieving a future powered by clean, renewable energy will require bold commitments and equally bold action. The benefits are immense, the potential is clear, and the time is now. Sizu Uzmaasi.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much. Again, if anyone else would like to offer any testimony, please come up at this time. If not, this will conclude the hearing. The committee will continue to accept written statements on today's hearing within 5 business days from today, which may be delivered to my office at 238 Archbishop Flores Street, Suite 906 at the DNA Building in Hagatna. Statements may also be submitted via email to sen.cridgell@teleguam.net, or you may send it via fax to 475-4768. This hearing is now adjourned at 3:09 p.m. Thank you all for your participation.